Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are, and thank you for joining us today for this webinar, the MES Selection Journey, Finding the Right Path and Avoiding Costly Detours. We are very fortunate today to have industry experts to help provide some guidance to the audience. Let me introduce them now, starting with Michaela Wagner, who's a sales manager with Critical Manufacturing. Michaela joins us as an expert in helping manufacturers through the MES selection process. She has more than a decade of experience in specifying both hardware and software solutions for the factory floor, and most of her expertise is in electronics manufacturing. Leonor Markish is a lead solution architect at Critical Manufacturing, supporting and guiding project teams who design and implement critical manufacturing MES. During her 15-year career with Critical Manufacturing, Leonor was part of the original MES development team. She has managed implementation projects for multiple clients, and now, as a solutions architect, works across multiple industry segments that include electronics, semiconductor, medical devices, and industrial equipment. Julie Frazier is the Vice President of Research for Tech Clarity, and the Tech Clarity research practice, where Julie is the lead, has a primary function to educate manufacturers on the business value of operations technologies. Julie has been a noted industry analyst in MES and manufacturing software for decades, as she is a leader and facilitator with the MES organization. We like to joke that Julie has forgotten more about the MES world than most will ever know. So, panelists, thank you for joining us. And Julie, could we start with you, please? The world of MES is reasonably complex, and some folks have difficulty understanding what it actually is. Could you take the audience, actually, before we do that, Raquel is reminding me that we have a way for everybody to interact with the webinar as a process. If you have questions or if you have technical issues, please use the Q&A button at the top of the screen. Now we'll take off with Julie. Could you tell us, please, a little bit about what actually MES is, and has that definition changed over time?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. It's something I've spent a whole lot of my career on, actually. In this slide, you can see the MES 11 MES functional model from 1996. I was part of the committee at MESA that helped develop this, and I helped write up the research about what it means. Basically, it is a set of functionality to help run a manufacturing plant floor operation end to end. So until that time, most of the products were very much point solutions that either did a certain function or a certain part of the plant. So this was a breakthrough to be able to go across the whole plant and connect into all of the other types of technologies that were available at the time. So this was sort of a breakthrough concept and a breakthrough set of technologies that a group of companies had developed back then. And then a few years later, the ISA came up with the ISA 95 model to talk about how this, what they call the level 3 or manufacturing operations level, communicates up to the enterprise level. And they created a model that has sort of 4 major blocks: production, maintenance, quality, and inventory. And so for a lot of people, they thought that was broader because some of the MES solutions at the time, despite the fact that we had all of those functions in there, really focused only on production and didn't have capabilities for maintenance or quality, and really minimal capabilities even for inventory in some cases. So at the time, a lot of the products didn't match up to either one of these models very well, but over time they have. Many MES and MOM products, so depending on what you want to call it, different people call it different things. I tend to call the software MES and the concept manufacturing operations, but there's a lot of ways to look at it. And the software has grown into the original definition in a beautiful way. So it really does connect the enterprise all the way down to the specific processes in the plant. And it's a unique capability that it has to do that.
Just as a reminder for the audience, thank you, Julie. The slide that you're seeing now is part of a buyer's guide that was created by Tech Clarity that attendees and registrants for this webinar will get afterwards as a token of our appreciation for viewing. So, Michaela, let's turn to you now. This is a complicated world, lots of stuff. Definitions are changing. When manufacturers begin this process, what are they looking for in a system? Is it MES? Is it MOM? Is it something else? And has that changed over time?
Well, Jen, that's a very good question. So I think it makes sense to look at that a bit from a historical perspective. So I would say ever since the focus was there on cost reduction and increasing the throughput. And I think in the past, basically manufacturers had the possibility a lot around machine optimization. And right now we see that machine optimization soon reach a kind of a limit. And right now we see that there's a trend going more and more into searching software solution to basically gain another level of efficiency again. And I think what is important to understand there as well is that the market got way much more dynamic, and the requirements are way much more customer specific. And so we see that basically companies need to challenge the flexibility and still need to stay on a high profitability level and have quite some pressure. And so to reach that, we see that more and more companies search solutions that cover the entire end-to-end process. So in that sense, coming back to what Julie just explained, and thanks for that, it was a really good explanation. So it's going for sure more into this MOM concept, so manufacturing operation management concept, like the entire scope, covering the end-to-end process, like, for example, also material logistics, quality management, operator support, data management. So it's kind of a unified solution, what also enables then a faster data transfer, I would say. And if you have one entire single solution in your facility, it also enables you a faster administration of changes for sure. And basically, we see that many of the companies want to have the entire process integrated to basically, in the end, be able to faster respond to changes and to also have a higher possibility for automation. And yeah, I think in the end, so having that in place, it really, it's the point where you get a kind of a new or an injection of efficiency again. So means also for sure that with that approach, we see a lot of cost reduction then in the end again, and for sure we see that the companies gain a lot of flexibility to basically, I would say, adapt to the market changes, what is in the end a huge competitive advantage. And going beyond that, having that solution in place, it means that you can manage a lot of data, and so you can have better data-driven decisions on the one side for sure as you as a human being, but also on the other side for going further with automation scenarios.
Thank you, Michaela. So, Leonard, with this level of complexity and integration across the entire manufacturing system, what's happened to the requirements that it takes to actually set up and run something this complex?
Yeah, it has been evolving as well. Of course, we have the MES taking over more and more functionalities over time. And we also have the integrations with more and more applications and also IoT devices. So everything is more real time. There is more and more data, and we need powerful systems to be able to transform this data into information, because data just stored, it means nothing. So we need systems to be able to compute and to escalate really fast and adapt to the needs at every given moment. So all the systems have evolved. The more modern MESs are now using cloud systems and or hybrid modes. So this is because the scalability gets better and the kind of security that it brings, it's also better, or it has some advantages. And we are considering new technologies for deployment as well, like containers, and so everything needs to be rethought, and the old way of having one application server and one database server and that was it has been changing a lot because we have many inputs and we need faster and more powerful infrastructure in place. John, you are on mute again.
With all of these changes, with all of this data and all of these different infrastructure requirements, what kind of skill sets do manufacturers need to start thinking about having as a part of a project like this?
It depends really how they want to manage these. Because, for instance, if it is cloud-oriented, you might not invest much more in different skill sets because this can be managed through cloud. But if you are using containerized solutions, you will need different skill sets than it was needed before, and you need to check your team and see if we need to upgrade these skills, either by hiring or training your people, of course.
Thank you. So, Julie, now that this is a significant project with significant potential value, why should companies think about MES as part of their digital transformation strategy? They've got lots of choices. Why MES?
It's an excellent question, and I think every company is asking that, and more companies are arriving at this idea that, hey, actually, I do need this. It might be a little more of a complex project than some of the other things they could undertake, but the reason they want to do it, there's multiple reasons. I think the first thing to say is you're a manufacturing company, and that's where the value is created. You're taking lower value materials and turning them into something higher value in your manufacturing operation. So it is the core of your business, number one. And as this slide shows, it's the core of your product life cycle. It's the core of your supply chain. And it absolutely is from the top to bottom scope of your data flow from IoT data all the way up. One of the things Leonor said that I think was very important is that it's not about the data. Until the data gets turned into information, you got a challenge. And MES is the only system that is uniquely designed to pull all of the data from your operation, whether it's from IoT and equipment, or whether it's from quality management or whatever, from any direction you want to think about, it pulls it all into context. And it really is the only system designed to do that. So while it is a rich set of functionality, it's also becoming a crucial part of the IT infrastructure for a company to have a successful digital transformation into Industry 4.0 or smart manufacturing, or however you think about it. So, you know, and there's just a huge value to be had. I think historically, 30-something years ago, everybody said the manufacturing floor was a black hole. Well, in some companies, it still is if they don't have a good MES. You need to be able to get that information, not just the data, but the information out of the plants. And this is the way to do it.
Thank you, Julie. So, Michaela, let's take this down to the practical. Julie's research and experience says this is a significant value creator. In your working with companies that are considering this, do they have difficulty creating an ROI for this kind of a project?
Well, yes, unfortunately, I see that companies struggling a lot with defining business cases, for an ROI and in general a return of invest scenario around that. And I think what is key to understand that is the risk that is coming along with that. I mean, if you don't do that, you face the risk that you probably fail achieving your strategic benefits or targets. And I think it has kind of like two reasons where it comes from. So on the one side, yeah, sometimes it simply gets forgotten to have a look at that. On the other side, sometimes what we see is that only a few individuals, a few people are leading this MES selection process. And in certain scenarios, the team that is leading the MES selection sometimes forget key manufacturing processes, so do not fully analyze the requirements basically from the very first beginning. So I would really challenge my company basically to do that, to have their strategic red thread basically through the entire implementation, and you can structure it in a kind of like a phase-wise approach that you say, for example, okay, I have my short-term business cases, so kind of like the quick wins. For example, if you don't have an electronic document management system yet in place, that would be a quick win, what you get like, yeah, out of the nature of an MES directly once you go live with it. So then you can say like with that, you want to reduce the processing time, for example, by 30% through better accuracy or removing or by removing checks. So another level would then be looking at the midterm benefits or the midterm business cases, and there typically we see a lot of business cases around quality improvement through, for example, enforced workflows. Like, for example, you say that you introduce mandatory processes or calibration tools, or that you enforce that only yeah, people that are trained are allowed to execute certain activities. And then you can also put a number again behind that. Your expectations like, I want to reduce my non-conformances by 25%, or to reduce my rework cost by 20%. Or if you then take a look on the long-term effect, I mean, in the end, you want to reduce your lead time. I think, yeah, you can there have quite ambitious targets, right? So you can, yeah, reduce lead time even by 30% with proper MES solution through traceability and entire process optimization. And this means that you have a way much faster time to market in the end. So yeah, I think such an approach, it's giving you a clear ROI goal, and it gives you in the end the entire red thread through your entire MES project, not only the selection.
Thank you, Michaela. So those were some really good examples of potential value being created. Leonore, you end up with management of the investment side of this, what companies need to spend in order to help this come to pass. What's critical for companies considering MES to do when they're estimating the investment to make those improvements?
Yeah, so the natural things are the costs of the MES itself and the infrastructure to support it, right? But we need to look further than that. We need to look not only for the MES itself, but also other costs that are involved by just using or implementing the MES. For instance, the MES is willing to talk with other systems, with other applications, which means that you probably need some kind of services from other tools in order to be able to have those applications talking together. The same with equipment. Sometimes the equipment also need upgrades and communication features that are not installed initially. So you need to consider that as part of your investment. Also, you need to consider if your system will be ramping up fast or not. You need flexible hardware or cloud solutions. And if you are using cloud solutions, it means that you have some kind of subscription. So it's not an initial investment, but something that goes along the time. So you need to consider all that into place. And you need also to consider that you need to train people, and not only the people from the shop floor, right? But you need also to train IT, for instance. You need also to consider that your processes will change, because an MES, it doesn't mean, it makes no sense to me that you implement a modern MES or a new MES system and you are not willing to take advantage from the benefits it comes with. So it means your process probably will be rethought, not the manufacturing process itself for the product, but the way you are working, because usually the way you are working is not just about producing what you are producing, but a set of activities and tasks that you accommodate, and those tasks are depending on the tools you have at the moment and the problems you are facing right now. So whenever you are implementing a new system, you need to rethink all that. And this is also effort, and means that you need some time to invest on that as well. And also you need to consider the allocation time for the team that will be supporting MES implementation. Because this team needs some time and allocation to that project, and this is an investment as well. And especially in the case of the multi-sites, this core team can be a full-time job. Okay, so it depends on the number of sites you are willing to implement and so on. But these are all little things that are around the MES implementation itself, and it's beyond the cost of the license and the cost of the hardware.
Thank you. Let me ask you another follow-up question then, Leonor. This notion of a multi-site implementation, right? It seems to me that this is an opportunity to get a greater ROI for the implementing company. The first site has to be probably more expensive because you're working very hard to get things right. The next ones are probably less expensive, I would assume. Yes, you've mentioned this notion of a core team. Do companies leave money on the table if they don't think about a multi-site strategy right at the beginning?
Yes, but it's not that straightforward as it seems, because many times companies have different kinds of factories and different kinds of ways of working in different regions with different skill sets in each of the shop floors and so on. So the multi-site approach is great. And it might save you a lot of money, especially when you are analyzing the numbers coming from the machine, from the multiple sites. You are able to compare between them. It's easier. But you also need to consider the standardization effort. And if you are standardizing at the same time you are implementing an MES, it might seem that the investment is too big, but actually you are doing two things in one, not just the implementation of the MES. So you are also forcing all the other sites to accommodate a new working mode, right? So, but you need to consider that, otherwise you will be implementing a new project each site you go. And there are a lot of functionalities that can be shared for all the sites that you are using, for instance, integrations with other systems, ERPs, some kind of business rules that are cross-wide or that you want to be cross-wide, so standardization, these kind of things can be accommodated and you can save a lot. Yeah.
So Julie, this is getting a really interesting picture of a complicated system that has great value potential. The ROI has to be done thoughtfully. You have to have a strategy. Does this fit with what your research is showing you across multiple industries? Is this happening everywhere that your research looks?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the challenge of creating a business case is one that has been, it's true for all software, but I do think in the case of MES, it can be obscure because of some of what we talked about, all the different people who are involved ideally in these projects. So I worked on an ROI guidebook for MESA some years ago. They just put out a new edition of it, and I think that's still relevant. It's still a challenging issue. But what's different now from 10 years ago is how many options you have to consider when you're looking at the universe of MES MOM plant floor systems, right? There are lots of new buzzwords around, things like low code and no code. And, I think just some of the new technologies they're out there. So you need to consider what makes the most sense for you. I think in the kinds of industries that you guys serve and that you mentioned, Leonor, focuses on, so electronics and semiconductor and medical devices, industrial equipment, those kinds of companies, I find typically have the best success sort of taking a middle road with a lot of different decisions here around what kind of system they might want to buy. So I don't typically recommend a totally homegrown system or a completely turnkey system, something that's tailored to your business, something that's configured. I think a lot of companies have a lot of technical debt because they have customized software over the years and they can't upgrade it, and they don't have people that know how to do that anymore. So, low code systems can work in some cases, but I think primarily for these industries, you want the configured systems. You want to make sure that both your company and your solution provider are innovating together, learning and changing together. Nobody's dictating. Everybody's listening to each other and learning. I think one of the big things is you really need to expect change. And I think that's what all of us have, I think echoed this idea that things are going to change. So you need to expect that, and you need to be open to it, and you need to help the rest of the team be open to it. So, discovering new best practices can be a challenge because you've been doing it a certain way for a long time, and there are people who are proud of what they've done rightly. So how, you need to really help get past the change management challenges. But I think, really companies there will be differences, whether it's the first system and they're rolling out to multiple plants, whether it's the first time they've done. I mean, I think some companies still don't have really a credible full system. Other companies are coming from an established system. So there are lots of different things you need to take into consideration around your skill set, around the expectations. So how much education you need to do will vary, but there's going to be change. So how can you keep an open mind?
So, Michaela, let's turn back to you. You're the one who helps companies go through this process, trying to balance change in process versus adaptation of a tool. This decision process, this balancing, this partnership that you're developing sounds to be challenging, right? So how do you prepare companies to go on this journey to select not only a system, but a partner?
Yes, you're right on that. And Julie just explained it really, really well, that it's a process where you can expect changes. And I think many companies, they recognize the MES, the MOM benefits, but they have difficulties in finding the starting point. And for sure, in the nature of us human being, like this uncertainty on where to begin, often let us focus on, okay, I will focus on the immediate needs. So, and yeah, we really ask the companies to have a very fresh and open mindset. So for sure on the one side, and I think that is very clear, we need to first ensure that the resources for an MES implementation and also for sure for the MES selection are available, and that the right people are also putting their input in. And then in the next step, I think it's very key to educate the team. So internally, I mean, so to educate the company, the members of the selection about what capabilities have MOM solution in general, and then to go deeper in the requirements. And once you have all the stakeholders involved, so you start basically creating a kind of a wish list. And here in this regards, in this wish list or requirement list, I think it's very, very important to really go deep and ask each level about the bottlenecks. So if you would compare it, for example, with, let's assume your current processes are like a kind of a house. So go away from this approach, just looking at your current processes, have more the focus on what do you want to achieve with that, and not on the how. This how this will be created later. So really motivate your team that they have ambitious ideas and they create with their requirements a kind of a castle in the end. And then later on you will have discussions with the vendors, and for sure here and there probably some things are not feasible to realize or not possible to realize, or maybe the budget is not allowing then the entire realization. But I think it's very important from the very first beginning to have a fresh mindset and to bring in all the requirements that serve for sure your business of today, but also of tomorrow. And there are tools like, for example, so-called RFI templates. So it's a so-called request for information. And these templates are basically splitted in functional requirements. It's a list of typical functional requirements that are needed in the entire MES context, then requirements around the architecture and about the vendor and the pricing. And I think it can really help you from getting away from this very focused on your own processes perspective, using such templates to get kind of inspired. And then out of that, it would make sense to basically create your own requirement list that you then send out to the vendors and keep the questions open and get then inspired from the vendors again on how they would realize and what ideas they have. I think a side note here is once it comes to the final project, do not probably stick too much to your RFI requirements. Discuss the certain processes then in the end with your selected vendors, because probably they have more efficient ideas in the end, so that you get finally the perfect solution that fits to your company. And I think with this kind of like opened approach, you create a kind of a vision of your requirements, and you have the possibility to get or to develop an innovative and future-ready solution.
So focus on what I want to improve and what goals I want to reach, not the specifics of how we accomplish things today. So Leonor, that sounds, pretty straightforward and maybe not so easy. However, what processes do you put in place from the technology side to try to help companies focus on those outcomes rather than the specifics?
This is not straightforward at all, because usually people describe their requirements as a mix of the situation they have right now and the tools they have right now to solve it. And they ask that as, I want this for the new system. And sometimes people forget to think about, why do I need this the way it is working now? Because new systems bring new possibilities to solve the same problem, maybe in a completely different way, maybe in an easiest way. So this is part of our knowledge, at least in CM. So We work since ever with agile methodologies. So giving the customer the opportunity to rethink multiple times in the way how they will address each problem. So we try to set up a vision of what the project will be, but we try not to focus in the specifics since the very beginning. So we commit to the vision of the project and the goals they want to achieve, but not to the specifics of each requirement. And then we will challenge along the way why that requirement is there. Why do they want these they have these in their wish list, as Michaela called it. And this requires a lot of open mind from the customer side and resilience from our side as well, because this is tough. But I think this is getting the best results, because what we know, and after a few years of project implementation, is that sometimes at the end of a project, some customers say to us, okay, if I knew this back then I would do it differently, which means that if we do this, if we do the decisions on the way and not all at the beginning, that's why we use Agile, that's why we focus on this kind of approaches. We are providing the time to be comfortable with the system, learn a lot about the system. And actually, this is one of our main drivers for the projects, is learn since the very early stages of the project. So we want the customer to be comfortable in the mechanisms the MES brings to the table, so that he is able to explore their own solutions, because everything that is configuration can be taught to the customer and decisions can be taken by them, because they are the ones that know better the process itself, right? At the other hand, we are building our requirements list, and we are building our solution along the time, of course, always checking with the customer, always challenging, always proposing new ways and more out of the box or standard ways of resolving the same kind of situations. And it was funny because Julie mentioned the perfect solution would be something between the off-shelf products and some things that need to be adapted. And the key here is balance, because even you can buy a very flexible MES system, and if you end up building everything on top of it, it means that you are building your own homegrown solution. So I think our processes bring time and iterative approaches, and also focus on the knowledge the customer has about the system since very early stages, and also the balance. Okay, I think that those are the main focused things for us.
So, Julie, this is how you deal with the requirements. There's got to be, though, some kind of a roadmap or structure that your experience can help folks with. What kinds of requirements need to be part of the consideration process?
Yeah, sure. And I have it right in that buyer's guide. So, but there are a lot of factors. Historically, when we write a buyer's guide, there always are sort of some functional requirements, because the MES is such a critical part of, and because technology is changing so rapidly, the architectural requirements and IT kind of background requirements also seem to matter quite a bit. And I think for MES in particular, that's important. I think we're getting a flavor today of, sort of how a solution provider can support effective buying and implementation. So I think having a true partner and not just sort of a vendor. I don't like the term vendor, but that's how our company calls software providers. I think of you as a software partner ideally, but it gets confusing because then you have partners too, and that comes into the implementation area. So I think implementation, understanding how that works is important. And we did mention multi-site. If you're going to do a multi-site implementation, there are some specific things that need to get considered, and you need to have a partner that really understands that. And then you may have some special considerations depending on what kind of an industry you're in. Some companies have mixed mode production, so they do some things in a batch process and some things discrete. A lot of MES systems have, they're really focused on one or the other of those. So you need to sort of pay attention here. And there also are some specific things if you're in a regulated industry that you need to consider. So those are just some examples, but I know this is kind of an eye chart. You don't need to read through all of it, but we do walk our way through these areas in that buyer's guide, because I think all of these are important. I wish I could say, oh yeah, there's one main thing you need to consider and that's all you need to do, but it's not that simple. It is a multifaceted set of evaluation criteria.
So, Leonore, long list, right? From a technology perspective, however, what do you view as being critical in this requirements phase?
So for the technical part, I would consider what kind of deployment process I want to support. So new MESs are using more and more new technologies. I need to be aware if that is a good fit for me, both in terms of my internal skills or if I want to pay for another company to do that service. So this kind of considerations, you have to have them. You need to consider a vendor or a software partner, as Julie was saying. You need to consider a vendor that's willing for evolving in technology as well. Otherwise, in a few years, your MES is back to the Stone Age, and you will be drying your capabilities, right? So you need someone that is willing to evolve as well, technologically speaking. So you need to consider what kind of deployment types they support. You need to consider what kind of integration capability it offers, because you know that MES doesn't live alone in the shop floor. So you need those integration capabilities to be as easy and as easy to maintain and easy to implement as possible. You need also to consider extensibility capabilities of the MES, because you know that you will always have that particular situation that you want to solve in your own way. So you need a platform that supports that for you if that is crucial, right? You need to consider compliance, as Julie also mentioned, and you also need to consider how easy it is to extract data and information from the system. So the systems that, because in the database, of course, that will be all saved, but what kind of context it provides, what kind of aggregation of data it is able to do. So, because at the end of the day, MES doesn't exist just to run the shop floor, right? Not just to enforce a given process or to record all the information from the shop floor. It provides a good step for you to take informed decisions. And those informed decisions are only possible if the data is correctly treated and correctly handled. So you need to consider not only the MES core functionalities, but also how easy it is for this system to talk with everything around, and how easy it is to have this system evolve with time in terms of technology. I think that is very important, because we witnessed a few years ago many MESs that were the edge at their time, but now they are not anymore, and new players come into the field, right? So if you want to build a solid relationship, you need someone that is willing to evolve as well, and you also need someone that works collaboratively truly sorry for the English, because I think collaboration is key here. I think you need someone that really understands your problems, really understands the field and the business, and is willing to take that journey with you.
So, Michaela, you get the difficult task of summing all this up into advice for companies that are considering this journey. What do you recommend? What steps should a company take as they're walking through this process to yes and MES, and which supplier and how do I do it?
So we see basically, yes, it's a very complex process, right, to select an MES. And what was shown on the previous slide, I think it already gave a really good picture or overview of the areas where you should look at. So functional requirements about the architecture and so on. And I mean, the goal during this decision process is basically to have a really informed decision, as you want to have a long-term partner in the end to have a successful MES in place. And here are several steps, so they're kind of like examples what at least we face along the process quite often. So if you look here on the left side, you see first this RFI that we see as a first activity that we get quite often, so a request for information. So basically, I assume right now that before the company is educated, they have resources available for their MES selection, and they have basically collected all their requirements internally. And those requirements, they send then out in a kind of in that case, RFI to several vendors, and in as much open way as possible. And after that, typically we see that we get then further demonstrations, or we basically execute them to basically give a kind of a look and feel of the solution, and to already showcase the entire end-to-end coverage. So it's kind of like already stepping into the individual processes, but not going super deep in. This comes at the next or later stage, typically what we see, at least so far. After basically a company sees like, okay, good, this looks like it fits to our requirements and it looks good for us. Typically, also more detailed request for proposal comes in. So, and there it's really helpful to provide us as the MES vendors with as much information as possible to give you the most accurate, basically, information about the pricing and the estimation what we would build around your requirements. And this is about to be adjusted and along the process. So I think this is an ongoing activity. As next steps, we see basically technical deep dive sessions. So typically we demonstrate then several individual processes, like for example, material logistics, or we step deeper into defect management or into advanced planning and scheduling activities and so on. In parallel, for sure, also discussions around the architecture start to happen or get into a deeper level. And then we see that's what we see typically at bigger companies, a proof of concept, where we basically work together out a scenario that we get from the company, and we really do a kind of an implementation. Most of the times this is happening in a sandbox. So we do not have a go live. It's a short period where we execute a project. And the good thing is that you do not only see the functional or the functions in the system, you also understand a bit better the working mode, and you see if this fits to your company. And yeah, last but not least, I really recommend reference activities. Either it's only a reference call or it's a site visit, because there you get like the real feedback from customers that already implemented a solution, and you understand better how the solution works. And yeah, in the end, so these are some examples, some milestones that we see along the way in a logical structure, and where we believe this is helping companies to have a very informed decision in the end, and lead them in the end to a successful MES implementation.
Michaela, thank you very much. It's a lot of fantastic information provided by all three of our panelists. We have some time just for a couple of questions that have come in through the Q&A portal. Julie, let's start with you. There was a question about what is MESA and where can I get materials? And you're on mute this time. You're still on mute, Julie.
MESA, yep.
There you go.
Uh-oh, you're live, but
You're good.
okay, double unmuted. Hopefully that worked. Yeah, MESA is a not-for-profit industry association. It stands for the Manufacturing Enterprise Solutions Association. So you can see it's very focused, and the tagline is something about where manufacturing meets IT. So basically, it's a membership organization. I highly encourage everybody to look into it at www.mesa.org, MESA.org. Right now, there's actually a membership special on, so happy that you asked. It's not something that happens every day, so you can get a special price to get your individual membership. There also are company memberships available, which have deeper benefits, but for individual memberships, there's a great way to just try it out and become part of our association.
Terrific. Leonard, I think this one is for you. What's the most effective way to assess the integration capabilities of an MES with existing systems like ERP?
Okay, so what I would do is ask for examples. So things, what kind of integrations were built before, if they know your system already or not, because the experience with your specific ERP may matter. And I would ask for details about how technically these are handled. Because you can cross these answers with your own ERP capabilities, and you can see if there will be an easiness to connect. And if you are thinking about the POC before really taking the decision, I would ask for one of the integrations to be built in this POC, just a sample, but just to allow you to measure how easy this was and how this went. So I will go with that. I hope that answers.
So, Michaela, we have one, I think, that comes to you. Can you say more about requirements? Don't we have to start with what we have in place today?
Well, I understand where this question basically comes from. I mean, in the end, you need to ensure that your production is running smoothly, and this is the key focus you have. And for sure, this is something what you need to ensure. And I think the key thing here is really to focus on what you want and not how. Basically, this is then in the MES, how the process looks like in all the details. So define a kind of a set of a minimum what you need to ensure your process, and ask then your question in a very open way. So you need to find there the balance then between your current needs and also then the future optimization. So you kind of look then more into that areas where you want to improve basically some things. And an example would be, for example, I think a key process step is the maintenance part, for example. So there you have, I think, preventive maintenance. That's something what is can be a good requirement for a MOM or MES solution. And for sure you can have this requirement, and for sure there are already a lot of solutions available that are also allowing predictive maintenance, like for example, taking a look at the feeders. So if you have a preventive maintenance, you need to maintain your feeders every 2 years. And probably some MES vendors are allowing possibilities to trigger the maintenance activities based on a cycle count. So, for example, after 2 million cycles, the maintenance is getting triggered. So also a combination of those things are possible. So see that your things are covered, but be open to also discuss new or future-oriented scenarios that will improve your facility.
So if I understand you correctly, what I hear you say is if you specify only what you have today, you'll end up with what you have today. If you specify goals for improvement, now you're looking at future down the road and you're taking advantage of what a modern MES might be able to offer.
Right, exactly.
Terrific. So Julie, one comes back to you, and I'm sure that there are other folks out there with this particular question in mind. Why don't you recommend a newer, more modern approach like low code or no code, where we do all of the configuration ourselves?
I think it's a great question, and there are some really great low-code and no-code platforms out on the market today, so it's a very valid question. If you recall, though, what I said was that I recommend that middle road for companies in these complex, high-tech, discrete kinds of industries, because, first of all, there are lots of MES solutions out there, or several out there that are very credible, very well proven, that you can go through this whole process that Michaela showed us, and you can find references, and they have functionality that will help you. So why not leverage what's already available on the one hand? On the other hand, the other thing that is a benefit for these established MES solutions or MOM solutions, depending on what you want to call it, they tend to already have the fairly complex model built in that allows all of that varied data in your plant to come to, or your set of plants to come together into a logical context model and be turned into information that's actionable. Having to create that yourself can be quite a challenge, actually. So again, there are places where I would, talk to somebody and say, absolutely, that low code platform, no code platform, that's a great choice for you, go for it. But if you're trying to really create end-to-end MES MOM capabilities across your plant or across your set of plants, and you're in one of those established industries where MES is well proven, it does fit well, then I just can't see why you wouldn't leverage the expertise of the vendor and the solution providers that are already out there that have so much to offer you to support you. So that's just my personal, I feel like then you can stay focused on improving your operation while the software is improved and built by others.
So I can see Leonore's face is lighting up here that she has something to add to this. Leonore, from a technology side, what are you thinking?
Yes, actually, as a software company worker, I would say that building and maintaining a software to be valuable along the time and technologically relevant is it gives a lot of work, and you should consider that when you start implementing complex solutions on your own, because your business it's not producing software, it's producing whatever parts you are producing. So if low code and no code solutions are great for small adjustments, for complex solutions, it can become quite daunting really soon and really fast.
Okay, So I think that takes us to the amount of time that we've allocated for today. So I want to thank all of our participants for their time and expertise. Thank you. Vielen Dank. Obrigada. And to say to our attendees, thank you also for attending. As a reminder, you're going to receive a follow-up from us where we'll answer questions that came in that we didn't get to today. And you'll also have the opportunity to review this webinar as a recording and to get a copy of the MES Buyer's Guide that's authored by Tech Clarity with Julie Frazier as the lead author. Thank you again. We hope this was valuable and hope you'll join us again for another webinar from Critical Manufacturing.